Hi, this is Damien from AtHope, and I'm an Axiological Atheist. And what I would like to do today is I would like to talk to you a little bit about the evolution of religion. And I'm basically going to be talking to you, but I'm also going to be going over the video that I'm going to be doing. So, I guess I will start with the beginning. The evolution of religion and removing the rationale of faith by Damien Marie AtHope. So, understanding religion evolution is to understand animism, totemism, shamanism, paganism, and progressed organized religion. And it basically follows in the sequence. So, it's important to understand that the religion thing was not like an all-encompassing thing. It was a basic, think of it like a set of Legos that just builds on each other. It's not like the old ideas are totally removed once a new religion is, or new religion thinking is invented, but rather it's more morphed into that kind of a thing. So, there's evidence of 3.4 million years ago bones with stone tool cut marks in Ethiopia. This is important because this already shows that humans by that time are actually making stone tools and using them in an effective way. 1.5 million years ago, 2 sites in Kenya show evidence of controlled use of fire, but there doesn't seem to be any evidence of using it for cooking. Though you can think of many other things, keeping warm and, keeping out in aggressive animals or whatever might be a safety thing. So, primal superstition, I feel, happens when they basically get more use of fire. And there seems to be, by this time, 1 million years ago, is a controlled use of fire, including cooking. There's also an improved thing in the way they do stone tools and its manufacturing. There's also a belief in the proto-speech, all of which demonstrated thinking as well as cultural advances, which could have further aided in the development and distribution of these primal superstitions, which I'm proposing. Seems evident in the artifacts and the behavior, which leads down the path to what eventually becomes religion. So, around 400,000 to 350,000 years ago in Germany, there's found an elephant bone fragment with 7 and 14 parallel cuts and lines. And this may be considered to be abstract art. It's interesting that the piece almost looks like a knife or a tool itself. Homo erectus bones of at least 3 individuals with skulls that have been intentionally smashed after death may also represent some sort of burial rite. So to me, though, by about 300,000 years ago, we have pre-anism. That seems to be quite evident. So pre-anism in anthropology is a stage of religious development supposed to have preceded anism, in which material objects were believed to contain some sort of a spiritual energy. Primal religion, or pre-anism, or at least the burial and thoughts of afterlife, may have been transferred from Neanderthals to archaic humans when they bred with them or interacted. Neanderthals also bred with Homo erectus, the upright walking man, and Homo habilis, the tool-making man. and possibly others, which means, and these other Homo erectus probably did stuff with the other ones also. So it could have possibly led to some pre-anism ideas being spread around. Ones that seem to express anthropomorphic art, especially. So there's evidence of an emerging preference for the aesthetic by this time at 300,000. Among Homo erectus particularly, in the lower Paleolithic, older Stone Age, the lower Paleolithic art, namely the Venus of Tantan, found in Morocco, is at least 300,000 years old, and the Venus of Bakram, which they believe is at least 250, but it could be up to 800,000 years old. In particular, in the high sedimentary exhibits, these are gathered stones that they seem to have faces, as well as stone tools with possible faces, in addition to stone tools that often seem manufactured with a higher care than what's strictly needed by use. So to me, it gets to a more progressed superstition by 300,000 years old. But to me, this progressed superstition is not fully religion. And there's evidence, though, in Spain of intentional storing of bones of at least 32 people in a cave chamber pit that may symbolize a pseudo-womb or something of the like. But they seem to have come back and also possibly thrown a stone tool on the top. And the stone tool is unused, and it is a red stone. This behavior suggests, or possibly suggests, a belief that dead humans were not the same as other animals, and possibly the stone axe made of red quartz could have been some kind of mortuary or other ritual or funerary ritual. And if it is so, it would be some of the oldest evidence of human sacred funerary practices. And this was from Spain. So also at 300,000 years old is the earliest possible use of red ochre, a red colored mineral that has very little use. Some people say that they can put it on their skin and it would be against bugs or sunburn, but it's any dirt would do that. Why red? So the fact that they intentionally mined this element that has no food, it's just basically probably for aesthetic purposes or ritual purposes, that it's very interesting that it would be because 300,000 years ago you'd think cavemen, what are they doing? They're just surviving. So why would you do a non-survival behavior like go for a mineral color? 300,000 years old. And it's at two places in East Africa and in the Trim Rivers of Zimbabwe. Zimbia. I'm not sorry if I pronounce it wrong. Also, there's evidence of jewelry. At 300,000 years old, there's a wolf tooth pendant that was found in Austria. And also, it's very in Morocco. Some of the earliest humans lived 300,000 years ago, but they had modern human faces, or somewhat modern. Just shows that we have this opinion of the ancient peoples as ignorant, and that everything happened now, or that somehow a god, gave everything in one package. It just doesn't match the evidence. So there's also evidence of Neanderthals possibly building a series of large underground circles with stalactites. Why? They don't seem to be able to hold anything. They more seem like ceremonial. And these are some of these are 175,000 years ago in France. So it seems that there possibly was a developed even anism or pre-anism developing extensively by 5,000 years ago. So the other thing brings us to the question I have is, did Neanderthals teach us this primal religion? Or at least show us burial practice that may be thought of as a belief in the afterlife? 143,000 to 120,000 in Israel at Turban Cave is found evidence of a Neanderthal type burial of an arcane type human female. There is evidence of a burial in Shoal Cave at 130 to 100,000, which may be Neanderthal human hybrids. Though early modern humans started engaging in burial practices only about 100,000 years ago. Evidence at Quasi Cave, burial in Israel. So one would wonder, did Neanderthals teach humans religion, or at least some sort of burial practices around 120 to 100,000 years ago? This thinking Neanderthals' primal religion could have come from is first supported in how, for 250,000 years, Neanderthals used red ochre, and for 230,000 years shows evidence in Neanderthal burial with grave goods and possibly a belief in some sort of afterlife. This brings me to animism. Yay for humans, finally getting in the game. So to me it's interesting how we always think of religion as being only a human endeavor, and it's like, yeah, that's not really accurate to the facts. So, animism is about 100,000-year-old belief system. So an animist, if you think about it, believes in spirit-filled life and or afterlife. So what this has to do with primal religion. And also in the quasi-cave, I'm probably pronounced that wrong, burial in Israel, modern human remains were stained with red ochre, and a variety of grave goods were found at the burial sites. Also, 71 pieces of red ochre and red ochre stained stone tools were found near the bones, suggesting they were also part of ritual use. The mandible of a wild boar was found placed in the arms of the skeletons, also symbolizing ritual. Near early anism, 100,000 to possibly 74,000 years ago in Border Cave, South Africa, is evidence of burial of a child, possibly wearing a necklace of beads made from shells and stained with red ochre. And also there's a lot of crystal tool art made by Neanderthals, and they don't seem to be used. And the crystals are not as hard or as effective to use as some of the other elements that stone tools are made of. So it makes you wonder, why would they do this? And it possibly just for the same feeling it makes when we look at it. It makes it feels, and just think too, you're this thing that doesn't know science. You're this being, and you see all the other rocks can't be see-through, but here's a rock that's see-through. I could see where you would see it as having some kind of magical qualities, because unlike all other rocks, this one could be seen through. And, you know, this is at least 75,000 years ago. So 75,000 to 70,000 years ago in South Africa is the first evidence of worship. And it's basically a stone, a snake, it was a stone that already had a shape, and then they modified it to even increase its looking like a snake. And then we get to totemism, which is approximately 50,000-year-old belief system. And so think of it this way, to me, a totemist believes in a spirit-filled life or afterlife, just like an animist, but believe that it can be attached or expressed to things or objects. And it's a little more involved than that, but anyway, so that's about 50,000 years old. So this is, to me, more of a progressed religion, moving on from the primal. So 50,000 years ago, humans are making the transition from earlier prehistory, where there's evidence of burial goods and graves, and the appearance of anthropomorphic images in caves that could be seen like also a pseudo-womb. Because I think everything, also how they're sitting sometimes is in a position where they're crouched, sort of like in a fetal position, as for burials. And this to me also would seem like a kind of a womb thing, possibly. And so paintings may suggest that humans began to believe in some supernatural beings or possibly supernatural agency of some kind. Even possibly that drawing animals might have been some sort of a magical way of aiding in hunt or aiding in their productivity, or giving homage to them for their giving of the hunt. Anyways, likewise, at this time, humans had evolved traits associated with modern human behavior today, by 50,000. Much of the evidence comes from the late Stone Age sites in Africa. And modern human behavior includes the abilities of modern language, abstract thought, symbolism, and religion. Like most behaviors that are found in societies throughout the world, religion in some form must have been present in these ancestral human populations before their dispersal from Africa. So, there's also a figure found that's considered to be one of the oldest sort of goddess figures. I don't consider it goddess. Venus of Hosflorus, and it's about 42 to 35,000 years old, and it's actually a pendant, and for wearing, just like the one of 300,000 was a pendant with the wolf's tooth. This is a pendant. So I see it's just a nude female. To me, I see it a fat one at that, with humongous breasts. Anyways, to me, I see it more like as a hunting magic, like abundance, like it's fertility in the sense of that we're going to go do things, or things in like abundance help us. Just like I think sometimes those running horses or whatever, that they were, eating horses. They were not, using horses to ride at this point. So, move on. Anyways, at 40,000, also in Germany, there's considered to be a lion-headed figure. It could be also a bear. It's not guaranteed that it's a lion. But it also shows just the anthropomorphic nature of the thinking in general. And if it's a bear, which I think it's more likely a bear to me, because it goes more in line with some of the things that they were eating. But it also could have been a lion, because I know later goddesses are associated with cats, and so it could be a cat too. But there's also bear religions at this time, so it's not It could be either one, but so if it's a cat or a bear, either way, it's associated with religion. So then there's at 36,000 to 32,000 in France, Chaliot Cave. There's the Venus or whatever. The Black Venus Triangle was actually in this stalactite. It's way down in this cave. This hanging stalactite has like a pubic triangle on it. One leg is like a cat or a lion, and the other leg is a bull, connected to a bull, making a whole person. To me, it's simple. They say it's the goddess and the bull. It could be. Also, to be though, it connects the bull, the cat, to the goddess, a figure, or certainly some sort of female something. So, shamanism occurs approximately, or at least by around 30,000 years ago. The shamanism believes in spirit-filled life or afterlife, just like the animists. Believes that objects and things can express this, thus kind of like a totemist as well. The difference is that these things can be used by special persons or in special rituals that connect to spirit-filled life or afterlife. So it's a little bit different than just the way that the other two religions express it. But like I said again, it's almost like it just keeps adding pieces, building to this full religion. So at 35,000 to 30,000, there's also evidence of a person buried with looks like a shell bead cap and a bunch of red ochre. So early religion at 30,000 years ago, there's evidence of like a dancing figure, female figure. And she's like at least 32,000 years old, and it measures 3 inches high. It was made to be held in the hand. You might almost think one of the arms is up in the air, almost like it's wielding it or something. And you must ask why, and I assume that it's part of the shamanism. It's approximately 30,000 years old. So also early shamanism we see in Russia at 32,000 to 19,000 in Sinclair, Russia, with sacred burials, shamanistic of the Dravidian culture. It seemed to match the later cultures of some indigenous Native Americans' shamanistic burial rituals, such as found in Alaska. About 11,000, 5,000-year-old dual infant burial in a very similar shamanistic way. So there's also early shamanism, or early shaman, and it's a female burial, 31,000, 21,000, there's other evidence. So this female was buried and also made a structure of her face, or like a little ceramic figurine of her face. So there also was found Venuses, or female ceramic goddess figures, as people call them. I still don't think these were goddess. I do think they were fertility and success. I do think they were representations of, like what could be considered, later being a mother goddess. But I don't think that it was. I don't think it was fixed. It was I believe like a great grandmother. Like it's like a archetype figure. So some of the burials were found, to have possible shamanist things. So the female shaman that was buried, or possible shamanist, contain burial goods including several stone tools, 5 box incisors, and a mammoth scapula, in addition to a thin layer of red ochre that was placed over the burial. And a carved ivory figure of a female head was covered and discovered near the huts that they were buried and lived in. And the left side of the face was distorted. And the female was about 40 years old. So there's also evidence of a similar culture a little bit later, 27 and 23. And there's a ritual burial that shows, 3 people, one face down, one with the hand over the other one's crotch with red ochre in it, and then red ochre across all 3 of their heads. So then we get to paganism by about 12,000 years ago. And paganists basically believe in a spirit-filled life or afterlife, just like an animist. They can be attached or expressed to things or objects, like a totemist, be used by a special person in rituals connected to a spirit life or afterlife, thus, like shamanism, but are supported or guided by a god, goddess, gods, god, whatever. So that's the big difference. And we find evidence for this at Göbekli Tepe and Catalhawk. So 13,500 years ago in Turkey, we find Eupheman, which is a structure of an expressionless faced man with a mouth missing. And it's about 6.5 feet tall, made of stone, like a totem pole, sort of. And it looks like he's holding his genitals, which may express power or fertility, as well as he has pronounced a necklace with 2 chevrons or triangles, which could represent authority or ritualistic symbolism, all of which is made out of a limestone and has carved out eyes that have obsidian chips in them. So Göbekli Tepe in southeast Turkey is where we find the first human-made temple. And this is primal organized religion to me. And it's from 13,000 to 9,370. And then we have Catalhawk in central Turkey. And it's basically the first religious city, and it's around 10,000, 9,500 something to 7,700. And there's evidence of a Trinity thinking. There's evidence of bear worship, of bull worship, of goddess worship, of probably sky burials or maybe bird worship. So we also find the first goddesses to me, possible proto-Cebal goddess, also known as the Great Mother or the Mountain Mother. And we find that this oldest figurine of a female that is basically seated on a throne with two cats on each side is possibly about 10,000 years old. And then they have the evolution of progressed organized religion, which is about 7,500 years ago to 6,500 years ago. And also the invention of Proto and spread of Proto into European language. We have female figurines. The Samarna culture at 8,000. I have evidence of, there's all kinds of evidence, but I'm just giving some. 7,000 years ago, there's it looks like a set of anthropomorphic figurines, or not figurines, anthropomorphic art that looks like a swastika. It's 7,000 years old, and it's actually probably female goddesses, and maybe the four corners, because they're done in four separate directions, along with surrounded by scorpions. Also in Africa and in Greece, there's by 7,000. There's still mainly it's just art of females and animals. There's some male stuff, but it's mainly females and animals as the majority. So by 5,000 years ago, we finally enter progressed organized religion. And to me, this starts with what most people think of religion today, 5,000 years and down. So we see that this happens all over the place. So the beginning of the switch from female, because female goddess figures or something, figurines, were placed in graves in Egypt, but there's by 5,600, there's a tomb with a male burial with a male figurine or male god, and other artifacts along with the first mummy that even predates the pharaohs. So this is 5,600 years. By 5,100 years ago, the Egyptian social hierarchy mixed with religion, culture, government was beginning to be fixed, with the king, priest, pharaoh, and top. And then basically the chief minister, priests, nobles, soldiers, scribes, merchants, craftsmen, artisans, commoners, and then slaves. This wasn't too different from the Mesopotamia social hierarchy, mixed with religion, culture, and government, with the top, priest, king, and then priests and nobles, and scribes, and army and government, rich merchants, and then merchants and artisans, and then commoners, and then slaves. So we can see that it's not that religion was somehow added to government later. Religion started government. And I feel that it's a way that religion got military. Religion got power. So to me, religion is just dogmatic propaganda. So forget the unfounded myths of religion. I have substantiated archaeological facts. The earliest hinting of symbolic superstitions behavior began to be seen about 1 million years ago, with primal superstition increasing about 600,000 years ago to a greater extent around 300,000 years ago. The earliest superstitionizing, sacralizing behaviors to me are evident for sure around 100,000 years ago, clearly about 75,000 years ago, progressing around 50,000 years ago, finally around 13,000 years ago, begins with the evolution of organized religion, developing further around 10,000 years ago, fully becoming expressed by about 7,500 to 5,000 years ago with the forming of mythology and its connected sets of dogmatic propaganda. So let me make this as clear as I can. All religions and the theorized deities or supernatural elements they support are but a spectrum of accepted yet unfounded myths, lies, or institutionalized superstitions, as well as some amount of the bundling, a grouping of pseudoscience, pseudo-history, and let's not forget pseudo-morality, that he wouldn't allow all the other lies. Therefore, there is no denying religious and religion's faithism, no matter how loved some may be, are profound untruths, or how I see them, just a connected set of dogmatic propaganda. All of this is basically part of my journey, or my book, that is about my journey of atheism and all this archaeology evidence. The Tree of Lies and its hidden roots, exposing the evolution of religion and removing the rationale of faith. Come on a journey to free thought, where the war is against ignorance and the victor is a rational mind. Religions continuing in our world of science facts should be seen as little more than irrational conspiracy theories of reality and confused, unscientific echoes from man's ancient past. Rational thinkers must ask, why continue to believe unfounded religions, now so obsolete, like childlike stories of how they wish the world works? These religious childlike stories should not even be taken seriously, but sadly, too often they are. Often without realizing it, we accumulate beliefs that we allow to negatively influence our lives. However, it is our willingness to alter skewed beliefs or assertions that impede our balance, which can bring about a new beneficial awareness. My book is not yet published, but when it is, it will be an attempt to offer lots of research information, such as archaeology, history, linguistics, genetics, art, science, sociology, geography, psychology, philosophy, theology, biology, ethnography, zoology, etc., along with challenges, questions, and ideas for others to ponder and expand on. This book has two main goals. One is to expose the evolution of religion, which loosely starts for humans about 100,000 years ago. Then organized religion, which solidifies about 13,000 years ago. The other goal is to offer thought-provoking insight and challenges to fully remove the rationale of faith. We often think we know truth. Nevertheless, if we do not follow reason and evidence, truth is but a vantage point away from losing credibility. The door of reason opens not once, but many times. Thank you.